widely propagated contemporary false image of Muslims in the West as being violent, barbaric, and anti-civilizational. To understand the high and breathtakingly enlightened culture of the Muslim Golden Age is to understand the positive part that Muslims played, and indeed continue to play in the development of advanced human society. During the height of the Islamic period, from 700 to 1500 AC, the world witnessed a major development in the arts and sciences. As a result of the extent of the rapidly expanding Islamic empire, Muslim scholars inherited the knowledge of nearly all of the other hitherto major civilizations: ancient Egyptian, Babylonian, Greek, Persian, and Indian. Caliphs and scholars made massive efforts to translate these sources into Arabic. Many important scientific and philosophical treatises were thus preserved from extinction. Not only did the Muslim scholars learn and preserve the knowledge of antiquity, but they also made their own critical observations and original research, thus adding a vast treasure of new scientific knowledge in the fields of philosophy, astronomy, history, mathematics, chemistry, and the medical sciences, to name but a few. As Muslim intellectuals, it is our responsibility to research and publish this original work and to disseminate as widely as possible the great historical legacy of these giants of their time, so that the world does not forget them, but recognizes and honors their contributions to science, knowledge, and civilization. Several nationally known scholars and authorities on the subject have contributed to this project by analyzing various aspects of Muslim scholars' contributions to human civilization. The project covers a wide range of subjects, including Muslim contributions to the political system, social sciences, humanities, jurisprudence, medical sciences, and especially the impact of Islam on the West. Abdul Hamid Abu Sulayman eloquently stresses that Islam and Christianity, two of the greatest religions of the Abrahamic legacy, have made significant contributions to human civilization. At this juncture, when our world is akin to a global village, an understanding of the common origins of all faith communities, especially of the two largest ones, is absolutely necessary to restore humankind to its senses. One important method of achieving this aim is to tackle and solve the problems created by a distorted and volatile history. A measure of desperately needed cross-cultural harmony can be accomplished by a better understanding of the contributions that numerous scholars and followers of these great religions have made throughout history. Recognition of their sincere dedication to pristine spiritual, moral, and ethical values, and an emulation of their legacy can certainly help to achieve the worthy goal of global peace and justice. Said Hassani's article outlines the Islamic political system with a case study of al-Mawardi's paradigm. Following Western domination of the Muslim countries, Islamic thinkers have reacted on three different levels to comparative political systems. First, the apologists have advocated the adoption of the Western model of democracy. Second, the traditionalists, on the other hand, have argued that this policy would lead to secularization, thus compromising Islamic values. Lastly, the moderates have stressed the middle-of-the-road position, benefiting from Western learning as the lost heritage of Islam, yet at the same time observing the fundamentals of Islamic Sharia. These divisions are not new. They existed in the Abbasid period, when the Mu'tazilites rationalists gave primacy to reason. The rise of philosophy under Caliph al-Ma'mun inspired fear among religious scholars that revelation might be threatened by reason. which gave rise to two kinds of reaction. Al-Ladthor, the traditionalists who totally rejected reason, and the Ash'arites who put limits on it to save revelation from being rejected. M. Wardi, a Muslim intellectual, criticized the established practice that Sharia, Islamic law, by itself was a sufficient yardstick for justice. His greatest contribution was the introduction of the concept of political justice into the Sharia. Dilnawaz Siddiqui, in his chapter titled Middle Eastern Origins of Modern Sciences, traces the roots of an explosion of knowledge which took place in the entire Muslim world from the late Umayyad era through the Abbasid era and into the 15th century. He attributes this unprecedented phenomenon to the divine injunctions contained in the Quran that Muslim men and Muslim women should study the books, that is, the Quran and the universe, each in light of the other. In other words, that it was one's Islamic duty to enhance continually one's understanding of all of God's creation. The acute consciousness of their duty enabled Muslims to strike a balance between reason and revelation. The Islamic principle of monogenesis inspired them not only to benefit from the collective wisdom of all times and climes, but also to create a societal order characterized by open access to all levels of knowledge for all of humanity, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, religion, or national origin. This climate of social equality fostered and spread a spirit of universal brotherhood, leading to creative and innovative ways of learning, including scientific observational methods, and thus to the evolution of various scientific disciplines. The chapters discuss Muslim contributions to the humanities, mathematics, and the basic and applied natural and social sciences, and tabulate the names, dates, and significant works of key Muslim scholars from the 8 centuries covered. Chapter 6. The contributions of Muslim physicians and other scholars from 700 to 1600 CE by M. Bashir Ahmad highlights the fact that Muslim scholars were at the forefront of scientific developments during that period. As leaders of this knowledge, they thus exerted a profound influence on human history. He shows that their works were of the highest quality, demonstrating the hallmarks of good science: experimentation, observation, rationality, objectivity, and professionalism. Their works demonstrate a remarkable absence of conflict between faith and science, a schism that continued to plague the Christian world until secularization freed the minds of its scientists from church dogma. The Muslim scientific legacy laid the foundation for the advancement of science and technology in Europe in the second millennium. Europe had until then languished in what is now called the Dark Ages. NIT is nitrogen monoxide exaggeration to say that IT was Europe's encounter with Muslims and Muslim civilization that became the engine of the European Renaissance. The works of Muslim scholars were widely used as textbooks in many European universities until 1600 CE. Arabic texts were translated into Latin and other European languages. Universities in Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Spain, Iran, Cordoba, Cairo, and others became major centers of learning in the world, where students flocked from all over Europe to study. Renowned physicians, such as Al-Razi Rhazes and Ibn Sina Avicenna, taught their encyclopedic works on medicine in European universities until the 16th century. As Briffault, a historian, wrote, "What we call science emerged as a result of the new methods of experiment, observation, and measurement introduced to Europe by the Muslims. Modern science is based on the most monumental contributions of Islamic civilization." Ahmed briefly describes the work of several physicians of that era. The way M. Safi, an intellectual who had the opportunity to experience both Muslim and non-Muslim cultures, points out in Overcoming the Religious Secular Divide, Islam's Contribution to Civilization, that the future of human civilization is directly linked to our ability to learn from the historical experience of both Islamic and Western civilization. He writes, "Although Islamic and Western civilizations appear to be far removed from each other at the level of structure and organization, both seem to share a common commitment to the universal values of social justice, equality, common good, social welfare, political participation, religious freedom, and a host of other common principles and values. Western civilization has perfected the structural elements of social life so as to allow a better integration of the above universal values into social organization. Western successes were, however, achieved by overcoming two major historical forces that are peculiar to the West: feudalism and organized religion. This fact has contributed to the erosion of the very moral basis in which Western Renaissance is rooted. Enlightened religiosity, a political order rooted in Islamic norms, shares with the modern secularist orders its desire to liberate the body politic from narrow religious and cultural interpretations. Unlike the secularist order, the Islamic political order, however, encouraged the fostering of moral values in accordance with the overall scheme of moral autonomy. In Chapter 4, Intellectual History of Euro-American Jurisprudence and the Islamic Alternative, Peter M. Wright compares and contrasts the contemporary legal systems prevailing in Europe, the Americas, and in the former European colonies with the principles of Islamic Sharia. He asserts that the Western legal systems have evolved in specific historical contexts and cultural milieus. Nevertheless, they share certain common presumptions that are rarely articulated or are exposed to critical scrutiny. Wright's chapter might be a beginning in the process of articulating in a cogent manner common presumptions behind current European legal structures. IT is an attempt to constructively engage them through a comparative study of a rival legal system such as may be found in Accepted Principles, O.F. Islamic Sharia. In Chapter 7, Mohammed Sharif discusses the feasibility of an Islamic economic system in a modern economy. He points out that the modern economic system has become complex and is becoming more so to the extent that its problems are almost intractable. He states that this is so only because it denies one very important aspect of human life, namely the soul spirit, and that it seeks to direct the whole system toward a fierce competition to gain as many material possessions and as much power as possible. The secular modern society creates many problems and is absolutely ill-equipped to deal with them. The only thing it does is to enact more and more laws with stringent punishment for violation, but to no avail. The allure of material possession and power is much too great to keep the aspirants to material success from violating the laws. In contrast, the Islamic system is simple and straightforward enough for everyone to understand. Moreover, its spiritual guidance is persuasive enough to make humanity abide by its divine injunctions, which are universally beneficial. It gears society towards creating and maintaining the environment meant for both the material and spiritual upliftment of all members of society. If the Islamic system is applied, it can successfully eliminate the problems of the complex modern economy in straightforward and simple ways, and can lead to economic development rather than growth. Abdelhamid M. Bashir continues the subject of an Islamic economic system in his Islamic Financial Institutions in the USA. Viability and Prospects. Islam is the first religion to introduce an interest-free lending system. The Islamic financial system, based on participation and risk-sharing, offers a viable remedy for the world debt crisis. Under Islamic modes of financing, the lender is expected to share part of the risk in investing. Accordingly, Islamic financing encourages active participation and asserts that money borrowed is not entitled to a reward. Thus, the system of shared risk is expected to reduce the possibility of financial crisis and to be more fair and equitable. Hence, Muslims are encouraged to abide by the tenets of Islam and not to deal with interest because of the great torment that awaits those who practice usury. Therefore, it is imperative for Muslims in the West in general, and the United States in particular, to establish financial institutions that provide them with interest-free choices. Multiple factors were responsible for the eventual decline in scientific progress in the Muslim world. They included the foreign invasion of Baghdad by the Mongols, the invasion of Syria and Palestine by the Crusaders, and the loss of Muslim Spain, resulting in the demise of the world's renowned teaching and research centers. Subsequently, two parallel systems of education were developed, namely the Sharia, the science of Islamic jurisprudence, and Al-Aqliya, natural science, and the new schools that emerged as a result, Madaris, singular, madrasa, discouraged the teaching of science and technology and focused solely on theology, the spiritual and ritual aspects of Islam. This was a major disincentive among the new generation of Muslims to acquire new knowledge and conduct scientific research. Religious fanaticism, narrow-mindedness, and a lack of tolerance ultimately resulted in a lack of real progress in this field. Science is not confined to a particular ethnic or religious group. It is an evolutionary process that will continue to evolve, driven by contributions from various races and groups. We hope that this channel will be a source of inspiration for all Muslims, especially young people, to make their own scientific mark on the history and development of human civilization. Don't forget to subscribe.